So here we have Resident Evil 2 Remake that you're seeing on the screen now, and we are comparing it with the just released Resident Evil 4 Remake. And in this video, I'm going to try and compare the two games in terms of graphics and gameplay and the feel, and also try and answer the question, if you enjoyed the Resident Evil 2 Remake, will you enjoy the Resident Evil 4 Remake, and vice versa as well, I guess. If you're new to the Resident Evil series with Resident Evil 4 Remake, you think, well, is it worth going back in time and playing the Resident Evil 2 Remake? Now, a little bit of a history. I'm a big Resident Evil fan, but my playing career, if you like, with the games is quite restricted. Played the original Resident Evil 2 on the N64 of all things, when probably the most expensive cartridge that was ever made came to that system. And then when I got a PlayStation 2, I then played Resident Evil 3 Nemesis and I think Resident Evil Code Veronica as well. I think that was on the PlayStation 2. And then I didn't really play much else. I played a little bit of the Resident Evil 4 on the Xbox 360, but I couldn't get along with the tank controls. But then I played Resident Evil 7 in VR, a little bit of it, and then the rest of it in normal. And then the Resident Evil 2 Remake on PlayStation 4 and PC, and then the Resident Evil 3 Remake on PC. So if you were to say which is the best of the ones I've played, I've got to say definitely I think the Resident Evil 2 Remake for me was absolutely fantastic. Now, when we're talking about graphics, the funny thing about the Resident Evil 2 Remake graphics is that I think when you first start playing them, and this won't probably come across on the video because the gameplay always looks better, doesn't it, on the small screen when you're watching on YouTube, is that I think the Resident Evil 2 Remake graphics are a little bit rough around the edges. And then as you play the game, you kind of get used to the look, and then you really start to appreciate these amazingly rendered and created environments, such as the Raccoon City police station when you're out and about in Raccoon City, and in the laboratories and things like that. Resident Evil 4 Remake doesn't have that problem at all. Resident Evil 4 Remake looks amazing from the get-go, as you would expect, because we've had several years of development of the RE engine. The Capcom devs are undoubtedly a lot more skilled in producing it. And what surprised me an awful lot about Resident Evil 4, and you can kind of see that in the gameplay that you're seeing here, is the size of some of the areas that you're in. They're absolutely huge. Resident Evil 2 Remake, it can be very, very claustrophobic as you're going through these small areas, from door to door, down corridors. And with Resident Evil 4, you kind of come across these vistas when all of a sudden the game opens up and you can kind of see where you're meant to be going in the distance. So graphically, Resident Evil 4 Remake is definitely a step up from Resident Evil 2, and Resident Evil 2 Remake wasn't, it wasn't a bad looking game by any means. In fact, some of it looks absolutely fantastic. Audio is great in both games, definitely. The biggest difference, and this won't come as a surprise to people who played the original Resident Evil 4, is in the gameplay. Now, as I said, I only played a little bit of Resident Evil 4 on the Xbox 360, and I couldn't get on with the tank controls. And the main surprising thing I found is how action-orientated, if that's a word, or oriented, Resident Evil 4 Remake is compared to Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 Remake. Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, although you do shoot lots of zombies, and you do have these kind of boss encounters with Mr. X or the Nemesis, a lot of the time you're kind of better off avoiding combat where you can, because you're trying to conserve all of your bullets and your ammunition and your health. Where in Resident Evil 4, this is all about using your weapons, using the parry mechanic, using the ability to stagger enemies and then go in with the melee to kind of finish them off, or finish them off with your knife. And there's even things like I've just unlocked a sniper rifle as well, so I'm using a sniper rifle in Resident Evil so I can pick off the enemies from across the map, and that's a good thing, because the enemies we're facing in Resident Evil 4 Remake, they're not zombies. These are people who have been infected with some sort of parasite, but they've still got a lot of intelligence left. So they're using weapons. They're throwing axes and knives at you. They're trying to hit you with axes and knives. They've got long forks that they're trying to stab you with. So you need this extra firepower to get past them, and they'll keep chasing you as well. They won't just ignore you if they can't see you. But this is a very different feel. You know, in Resident Evil 2, you know, when you've got a couple of shambling zombies coming towards you, but their heads are bobbing all over the place, and you're trying to get that headshot, you know, you've got to be really careful, and the tension rises. Where in Resident Evil 4, it's more like, you know, a shooter. You know, where you're blatting them with your handgun, you're getting your shotgun out, you're chucking a grenade at them, you're punching them, you're kicking them, you're using your knife, all these other things as well. But I've got to say, once you get used to that, once you get used to the idea of, hey, I need to be able to parry, I need to be able to understand how this combat mechanic works, and the dance of the combat, if you like, of bringing in all those things together, Resident Evil 4 Remake is an awful lot of fun, but it is different to the feel of Resident Evil 2. Now, I think if you've played Resident Evil 2 Remake, you will definitely enjoy Resident Evil 4, and vice versa as well, because there's an awful lot that's similar that's going on here as well. They're two sides, you know, two different sides to the same coin, if you like, and they're both enjoyable in their same way. And I think probably playing Resident Evil 4 Remake and then going back and replaying Resident Evil 2, because all of these games are eminently replayable, I think I will then appreciate the style of Resident Evil 2 in a way that I can, even more than I do at the moment. And playing Resident Evil 2 and coming into Resident Evil 4 and now understanding that this is the combat Resident Evil, you know, I can really appreciate the fun that I'm having with that as well. So, you know, they're both great games. Resident Evil 4 Remake, definitely get it if you're a Resident Evil fan. If you've enjoyed Resident Evil 2 Remake, you'll enjoy Resident Evil 4 Remake, and vice versa. So there we go. But what do you think? Put your questions and comments down below. If you've enjoyed the video, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe, and I will of course see you again soon.